This is the Investor Connect podcast program. I'm Hall T. Martin. I'm the host of this show in which we interview angel investors, venture capital, family offices, private equity, and many other investors for early stage and growth companies. I hope you enjoy this episode. Well, hello, this is Hall Martin with Investor Connect. Today we're here with Brent Ogilvie of Pacific Channel Limited. Brent, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for inviting me, Hall. I'm pleased to be with you.
Great. So what was your background before investing in early stage companies? What did you do before this?
I've got a bioscience and product development background, and back a couple of decades ago, I come from New Zealand, and the New Zealand government was convinced that New Zealand had an opportunity in biotechnology. We were very good at producing top papers and top journals. We were okay at patents, but we weren't great at converting all that genius and hard work into actual companies and wealth creation. So I joined about 15 years ago as New Zealand Trade Commissioner to the US, and we focused particularly on life sciences. And at the end of that tenure there, I met with a group called the Channel Group in New York, who'd been successful in taking benchtop science through to market, and yet had stayed humble with it, which is important from my end of the world. And we started working with them and eventually formed Pacific Channel from New Zealand, looking to invest in deep tech companies and taking them global.
Well, great. So what excites you right now?
I think the fact that capital is increasingly global, especially beyond the startup very early stage, is exciting to us. So we do the innovation piece, we think, very well. We've got a very developed early stage investment market, but our challenge has been getting access to market, getting seasoned executives of experience and successfully commercializing and taking these technologies to market and getting those larger licks of capital. And with an increasingly connected world, that's all much more possible.
Well, great. Well, what's your advice for people investing in startups in the deep tech sector? What do you tell them to do before they write that first check?
Stop, pause, and look at what your judgments turn out to be like. So I think don't rush in. For some of the best advice is to watch for a year and see, how companies you were considering investing in actually evolve. And then also find someone, with real scar tissue and short telomeres to co-invest into. This space, I think, is both complicated because of the underlying technology. You need to have someone that can understand that. But also there's layers beyond that in terms of making sure that you've got a protectable position. Intellectual property patents usually the key to that. But then there's layers of risk even beyond that in terms of can you recruit the right people? Can you recruit the right partners? Can you fund it all the way to market? And often, especially I think involving human health, regulatory risk as well. So I guess each of those risks stacks on the other. So finding people that have successfully navigated that, I think, is key to investment success.
And to go to the other side of that table, what's your advice for people running startups in the deep tech sector? What do you tell them to do before they launch that startup?
Yeah, I think having a good mix of skills in the team is important. Either having that, attracting other founders, or being open to working with investors that can help you attract such people. So typically we get to see opportunities that are heavy in science and short in commercial capability. And we look to work with those companies that are open to our help in building out the commercial part.
Well, great. So how is the industry evolving these days? What changes do you see in funding deep tech startups out there?
We're fortunate in New Zealand to have very supportive government environment. So there's significant both R&D grant funding in the public system, and then R&D grant funding once a startup has established, as generous as $3 to $1 at its very earliest stage. And there's an active angel investment community across New Zealand and a number of seed investment funds such as our own that to invest broadly. Ours is specific in deep technology. So getting the first million or two for a good technology, a good founder group is relatively straightforward. And then positioning yourself well from that to do a larger 8-figure round. The challenge is you're more likely to be successful in that if you have an international partner, either a corporate or an overseas venture fund.
Great. So let's talk about specific channel, what is your investment thesis for it?
So like, I guess most early stage investors, we look, as I said, for good patent, real disruptive technology, good founders that we can work with. I guess more uniquely, we're not always only seduced by billion-dollar plus market opportunities because we're investing at the very earliest stage and starting from a small geographic market. We see that small niches can be equally attractive. So we formed a company, for example, that was focused on separating female from male-bearing sperm cells for the dairy industry. So we worked with large bull breeders and artificial insemination companies. And whilst a small niche globally, it's still a very significant economic opportunity, and we had a nice exit from that about a year ago. That's also a good example of areas we focus on where New Zealand is comparatively strong, so large animals, animal health, dairy technology, but also human health. We've got 2 world-class universities in that area.
Great. Well, can you talk about one or two startups that fit that thesis?
Yeah. So we're currently invested into a company called Nzeno, Nzeno, and it's taken a very unique group of pigs, as it happens, from the Auckland Islands, which are halfway between the bottom of the South Island of New Zealand and Antarctica, so very remote. Average temperatures well below zero. And these pigs were dropped off by a mariner a couple of centuries back and have developed in quite a unique way. So they're not capable of transmitting PERV, which is the main virus people worry about going from pig to man. So this group has taken those pigs, used CRISPR technology to deactivate certain genes that would cause issues when you're taking pig material and putting it into man. And their initial focus is on kidney. So there's over 500,000 people in the US that are on dialysis, and many would like a replacement kidney, but there's far fewer kidneys available, and the pig kidney is quite similar to the human. And with the deactivation of only a handful of genes, we're confident they can be successfully used for human benefit.
Well, you deal with a lot of deep tech companies. What do you think is the main challenge those startups face in launching their startup? Is it the market? Is it technology? Or is it regulatory? What do you find them struggling the most with?
Yeah, so for us, let's assume you've got a world-class innovation out of one of our great universities to start with, and let's assume you can build a good patent position. I think really one of the big challenges is recruiting experienced management that have gone through the steps of developing that from a benchtop concept into a product that can be launched in the market. And as you say, regulatory is certainly a big part of that. And also given we're at the bottom of the South Seas, access to market is also linked to getting the right people. So, if there's chief business officers out there that would like to locate to Paradise, would certainly be very pleased to hear from them. So for us, recruiting the right people into those companies is key to their successful development.
Great. We see a lot of applications and sectors in the deep tech space. If you had to pick one or two as good immediate opportunities for investors to pursue, which one or two would you call out?
So we're a little bit technology agnostic. We'd like to see technology applied to a problem that we think creates a worthwhile market. We do, though, like the application of CRISPR technology. We're also interested in pheromone-based technology. We think that's got a big untapped opportunity in areas of farming, pest management, and so forth. And obviously, we don't want to see New Zealand become Kodak. We'd like to see New Zealand investing into areas of meat and dairy substitution as well. We think that's an interesting area to be looking at.
Great. And on the clean tech front, 10 years ago, there was quite a bit of investment going into it, and it seems like it's coming back again now. But it seems like it's going into different areas. Where do you see clean tech getting most of its funding these days? What sectors are drawing the most interest?
So for us, two areas that we're focused on is making wastewater treatment more effective, particularly reducing the requirement for landfill and having ideally a potable water and some commercial products as the end outcome of waste treatment. So we've got a couple of exciting technologies in that area. I think also optimizing energy production. So we also have a technology applied to thermal power generation, which can make thermal power generators 5 or so percent more efficient without the need for further input. So reducing the inputs, reducing emissions is obviously on point for the world.
Great. Well, in the last few minutes that we have here today, what else should we cover that we haven't?
We've invested our own money to date. We've called that in retrospect Pacific Channel Fund 1. We're just in the process of forming Pacific Channel Fund 2. So it'll be focused on investing into New Zealand early stage deep technology companies. We've had some very good returns from our first fund, 75 times money, 24 times money, 3 times money for 3 of our ventures. Of course, you also got to accept that a number of ventures won't succeed as hard as we might work to make them successful. So we've been fortunate to attract wealthy migrant investors from the US and elsewhere to come to New Zealand. And some of those have also chosen to invest into our fund, which is exciting. And I think if any of your listeners like their survival bunkers to come with golf courses and vineyards and beautiful mountains and beaches, then New Zealand's a great place to consider coming to.
Well, that's great. Well, how best for listeners to get back in touch with you, including those investors?
So we can be found at pacificchannel.com, Pacific like the ocean and channel like the English channel. And we would certainly be pleased to engage with people. Our chairman is based in San Diego. We've got a presence in Hong Kong. So we're easy to get in touch with wherever people might be coming from.
Well, great. We'll put those in the show notes. I want to thank you for joining us today and hope to have you back for a follow-up soon.
Terrific. Thanks very much for your time, Hall. Much appreciated.
Investor Connect helps investors interested in startup funding. In this podcast series, experienced investors share their experience and advice. You can learn more at investorconnect.org. Halti Martin is the director of Investor Connect, which is a 501c3 nonprofit dedicated to the education of investors for early stage funding. All opinions expressed by Hall and podcast guests are solely their own opinions and do not reflect the opinions of Investor Connect. This podcast is for informational purposes only and should not be relied upon for the basis of investment decisions.